Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Stories to Inspire. Stories are powerful, and people's stories are powerful, and everybody has a story. It's just whether they are willing or wanting to share their story. And this is what Stories to Inspire is a platform for people to come and have a conversation with me and share their stories, share their journey that they have been on, and what lessons have they learned along the way. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. So today I have the wonderful Bonnie, who looks like she's sitting in a woods, which looks really beautiful, but we both know that she's actually in a room with four walls around her and a window, hopefully a window. Bonnie is going to talk to us today about her experiences and what shifted and then what happened when she hit rock bottom. But one of the things she's going to talk to you about as well is the third act. I love that, the third act. So I'm going to just leave it there and keep watching, and we'll talk about the third act at some point so you can really hear about it. So welcome, Bonnie. Thank you for flying in from the States all the way from Colorado and being with us today.
Well, thanks, Natalie, for welcoming me. I'm thrilled to be here, and it was quite a long flight, but I've made it, and I am ready to rock and roll with you today.
Great, and it's lovely because Bonnie is got, I think it's around about lunchtime where she is, and it's evening here, so I'm always amazed, and I shouldn't be, but I'm always amazed at the time differences and how I'm sort of winding down for the day, and you just halfway through the day, you've still got the rest of the day to go. So I love it. I think it's great, especially when you try and juggle appointments and diaries. That's the best bit.
But we've done it, and here we are.
We've done it. So tell us a little bit about you and about, why not? Let's just jump straight into the deep end. And what took you to that moment that you hit that rock bottom and just thought, you know what? Something's got to change.
Oh my, okay, I'll give you the short version because the long version could take a few days. I'm an anxiety management therapist and educator. And the reason that I've taken the path that I have is because I've lived with an anxiety disorder my whole life. And a book that I'm currently working on about that subject that I'm calling Besting the Beasts of Anxiety. And the beasts of anxiety are secrets, lies, addictions, and thieves, is a story about the background of my life and kind of how I got to the place I'm at now from a place where I was really stuck. My family put the D in dysfunction. Let me just say that as a child. So there was a lot of craziness going on around me, a lot of secrets and things I didn't understand and stress and blah, blah. So I developed panic disorder and agoraphobia. And I didn't know what that was when I was in maybe middle school, when I first started having panic attacks. And I just tried to hide it because I thought I must be crazy. And if I tell anybody, I can't out myself. So I suffered a lot in those years and through high school, and had a low self-esteem and didn't believe that, when all my friends were planning to go to college, that was even in line for me. Wasn't encouraged in my family. It was actually actively discouraged by my mom. So with all that it took for me to get to a place where I got accepted to a college in Connecticut, which focused on my life's love and obsession, horses, where I was going for equine studies and business, I got myself to school, which was a miracle in itself. And during my first semester, I was meeting friends and starting to go to class and super excited about this huge change in my life and the escape from my home, which is not a fun place to be most of the time. But unfortunately, my anxiety disorder bloomed and blossomed in that context and started to take over. I couldn't get to classes. Some days I had to ride a shuttle to one of my classes involving the horses, and I would get agoraphobic feelings on the shuttle and
just
couldn't
explain a little
make.
bit for people who don't know what agoraphobia is.
Oh, so glad you asked.
How that feels or impacts.
Sure. Okay. So being super anxious, I started having panic attacks in certain situations, like the grocery store, or at the bank, or whatever, in class when I was in high school. And somebody dealing with panic disorder can sometimes develop agoraphobia, which technically is fear of the marketplace, fear of sort of the outside world. And what the panic disorder can cause is avoidance of, oh, that happened. I panicked in the grocery, so I can't go to that store anymore. And I panicked on an elevator, so I don't ride elevators anymore. And pretty soon, people can get so shrunk into that they can't leave their homes. And so I'd reached a point where no elevators, no movies, no concerts, anything like that, no boats. And I grew up on the ocean. I mean, ridiculous. And a lot of, vehicles and such, I just couldn't get in. And at that point, I got stuck at home. One day I came home from lunch from work, and I couldn't leave my house to go back. I had to call my best friend to pick me up. So that's when I knew I was in a place that was very, very tight and small. And because of all the panic that I dealt with at college in my first semester, I quit at the end of my first semester, which was the lowest point of my life. What it took to get me there and how it felt to be there, and then to have to leave that because I couldn't handle getting to class and doing all the normal things that everyone else was doing.
All this time you hadn't spoken to anybody, so you very much kept this to yourself.
I was a hidey hider, and a lot of people with anxiety do the same because it seems to come out of nowhere. It seems not to make sense to anything really connected. It's not fear, like, oh, there's a tiger in my backyard. Maybe I shouldn't go outside right now. That's logical. Anxiety is not logical. Why am I standing at the line in the bank and suddenly I feel like I'm going to explode? It doesn't make sense. So I know a lot of people with anxiety don't share, and the suffering is great. Yeah.
So what happened when you quit college? Because you just felt you couldn't deal with it anymore?
Oh my goodness. So I had to go back home to live with my mom, which was devastating after moving out of that space. And I really didn't know what to do. I had to get a job. So I got a job bagging groceries at the local grocery store. Unfortunately, connected with a toxic ex-boyfriend because it seemed like I needed to torture myself further somehow. And that was a really, really dark place for me. That was the only place really in my life where I really wondered whether I wanted to stay on earth with the rest of the people. I really felt like I had nowhere to go. The thing I most wanted got taken away from me, and I was completely out of control of my emotions.
So what made you decide to stay?
So many places in my life that horses have been my saviors, my sounding boards, my friends, my confidants. When I thought of whatever my next life might be, who knows? It might not include horses and the few really close friends that I had. And there was just one friend from high school who kind of knew that I was having these problems because she had seen me have a couple panic attacks. It was really thinking about that. I couldn't imagine whatever I'd go to next might be without horses and my closest friends. So I had to hang on and wait to figure out what was going to come next.
So what did come next? What gave you, or what direction did you go into that helped you to move away from there?
Well, after the time when I felt really stuck in the house, and I know that people go through months and years of this, other folks have, I went really through one real day of I can't go back out to work. At that point, in my early 20s, I realized I needed help. I could never ask my family. They were not people that I could open up to at all. And my one friend, I talked to her a little bit, but I realized I really needed professional help. I needed a therapist. Despite all this heavy anxiety all my life, really kind of a glass half full person. I'm optimistic and forward thinking and make things work out. That part of me was still alive and well-ish. That part of me made me pick up the phone to my health plan and call to try a therapist. And I purposely picked a male therapist because I did not trust men at all at this point in my life. And I got really, really lucky with the therapist I connected with.
So what was it about this therapist that helped you, that got you on the road to your future, to where you are now?
Well, let's see. His informality I appreciated, because although you may not see it right now, I am a very informal person. I'm pretty silly, and sometimes my language is pretty bad. But I got into this health plan with this gentleman, and he reminded me of a leprechaun. Irish man, kind of smallish, big blue eyes out to here. And he would sit at his desk with his feet up on it, with a Snickers bar and a Coke, which I rolled my eyes at, being a fitness person at the time and still. But he sat there with his Coke and his sat back and his Snickers bar, and he just said, "So what's up?" And he listened to me. He was really, really present. And in his skills, he could see that I did not know how to name my emotions. I couldn't identify what I was feeling around all the anxiety. Like, what is anger? What is sadness? What is joy? I couldn't even answer those questions at that point in my life. So he really helped me to separate out my emotions and my person from the reality of my family, which is not me. It's what I came up in, but the things that went on there, I began to allow myself to not be defined by that through the work with him. And that was huge. I've done all kinds of other therapies and meditations and, practices since then, but he was absolutely the catalyst. And one thing that he pushed me into the time was group therapy, because I said, "Oh, no, I am not going to sit in a room with a bunch of people talking about their stuff and tell all my stuff. No." He kept encouraging me just quietly. And finally I said, "All right, I'll try it." And being in a group of people where everybody was like, "Yeah, I know that feels like. Oh, I've been there. Oh, you too," was life-changing. Like, I'm not alone and I'm not crazy. There's a reason I feel this way. So yeah, starting with leprechaun man with the blue eyes and the Snickers bar I was all about it.
And of course, being part of the group, as you said, showed that you're not alone. There are others, and just they're there in that group and they understand and they know where you're coming from. That's quite a wonderful feeling, just knowing you're not alone.
It really was. And I felt safe there after the first few times, because there were other young women who were suffering with a lot of the same things I was. And I was shocked to see that, the same things that I was going through, these people were feeling. Of course, now and where I am in my life, and I look around and I think, oh yeah, there's a whole lot of us who are feeling these things, and we're stuffing them and we're throwing them out in anger and we're pretending they don't exist. We're denying, we're doing everything we can to just put one foot in front of the other every day. So many.
This whole COVID and pandemic situation has almost exasperated the situation and maybe made people who were not necessarily in that place pop them into that place of uncertainty, the fear, the anxiety, the not wanting to leave home and all that.
Absolutely. And because I've created successful management strategies and a daily practice for myself and been able to move through some of these anxieties that I had, I don't focus on myself so much anymore. I can really pick that up in people around me. And I see impatience and anger and fear in so many people. And you're right, the pandemic, that just put everyone who's already struggling even a little bit in a place of being more alone with their things, more alone with their stresses, more alone with their demons. And that in that way, the pandemic has not been good for us.
So would you now say that that was your first sort of act, and then you went into your second act?
Yes-ish, I would say so. I think my first act was because I've been obsessed with horses since I was 3, and went actually into working with them. I started working as an 11-year-old into my early 20s, and then I shifted, despite all the anxiety, I shifted into running a business of my own, unrelated to anything else I've mentioned so far. But now, yes, I've been teaching middle school for 21 years. And I've had a therapy practice part-time since 2005. It's time for me to move through the teaching and fully into both to a limited degree, the private therapy world, but also I'm expanding that into a larger education world where I can meet more people's needs around anxiety. So that's what I'm working on now. And since I turned 60 this year, I am embarking on my third act. Thank you, Betty White. If she can work till she's 95, then so can I, on something that really matters to me and to the world. So yes, I'm here on my third act as I'm moving out of education, retiring. This is what retirement is looking like for me. I am developing a membership this summer to help people with live webinar and questions and stuff to come on and discuss with me what's happening with them. So we can kind of brainstorm and peer collaborate around reducing that anxiety piece and finishing my book, which is about 2/3 done at this point.
A busy year then.
Oh, it's a busy year. Oh, yes.
So just going back a little bit, is to go from being agoraphobic, hang on, I can get this word, agoraphobic, I think that's right, and having all this anxiety, to becoming a teacher of young teenagers. That's quite a, you didn't pick a job data capturing or something, sitting in front of a computer all on your own. You picked being a teenager. I keep saying a teenager, but a teacher. And not only just a teacher, go easy, have the youngsters, they're great. You decided to do young teenagers.
Yes.
Okay, help us to understand this process.
I don't think it's an accident. I don't think it's an accident you call me a teenager, because I tell people all the time, this is my arrested development stage, 13, full on. That's me most of the time. And so I really enjoy that age group, and they are hilarious and open to learning and absolutely exhausting and wound up all the time. That's kind of what that chaotic world looks like. And as a matter of fact, I was born and raised in the Boston area. I lived there till I was 34. Finished my undergrad there. My husband and boyfriend and I decided we were going to head out west, do something different. I wanted to go to grad school somewhere in this area. So we came out, and I actually took a class at University of Colorado called I'm Semi-Retired, What Do I Do Now? And so I was in my mid-30s, had given up the business, the retail and contract business I had in Massachusetts, and went to this class like, I don't even know what I want to do right now. Let's just see what happens. So in conversation with other adult students figuring out their next act, that's why it's kind of act 2 then, they looked at me and said, teaching seems to be a thing for you. Because I had described being a riding instructor, a trail guide. I was a fitness instructor part-time for the rec centers and the Y, both here in Colorado and also Massachusetts. Have you thought about teaching? And I said, no. Why would I want to do that? Be in a room with 30 teenagers, get paid not very well, and take a lot of garbage? I don't think so. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, I could have a huge effect not only because I'm a nerd and I love the English language and I love to read, and you know, those t-shirts that say I'm silently correcting your grammar. That's me. Yeah. I loved that. And I just found that that age group of kids just made me laugh all the time. And really, it must be an arrested development thing because I go right along with it. I listened to those folks in my adult class and I thought, oh, maybe. And suddenly I found myself spending the next 5 years at the University of Colorado doing a 2-year teaching certificate and 3 years of a master's degree in curriculum and instruction. But I'm using it now again, because in my third act, as I'm creating courses and membership and structure for people to reduce their anxiety and use the strategies that I use every day to survive, I'm back doing curriculum and instruction. So fits.
And as you said, this is your third act now, and you in your 60s, and you are the proof that you're never too old.
Oh, yeah.
You know, how many times, I mean, I hear it often, and it's something a lot of people think is, oh, I'm too old. I'm too old to start something new. I'm too old to do that. I'm too old to whatever it is. And it's like, no, you're not too old, because you're never too old. You essentially starting a new career, starting your own business. Now, I know you've had your own business in the past, but this is 30 years later. Business is different.
Oh, yes, it is.
We got internet, lady.
Yes, you
That's a
are
start.
right. Yes, you're so right. Oh, yeah. So I turned 60 in January and started thinking, okay, well, back in 2005, I started my part-time practice as a retirement vehicle. I was thinking ahead, like, what am I going to do when I leave teaching? I'm not going to be that old, am I? Wow, I just turned 60. I'm supposed to feel old. Well, I'll tell you, turning 60 was a little bit scary. At first, I thought, this is the beginning of the end, isn't it? I'm going to get old and my joints are going to hurt and I'm not going to want to get up in the morning. And oh, for God's sake. So the first few weeks after I turned 60, I struggled. I looked around. I kind of waited for the Grim Reaper to come over my shoulder and tell me, hey, time to go, lady. And then I got over it. And you know, those numbers, those stages that we apply to ourselves, they don't mean anything. And I'm getting that in a way I didn't before. Like, I'm still me. I still get up in the morning. I work out. I go to work. I read. I'm developing. As you said, I have had this practice, but I'm completely developing it into a new level. And it's all technology and a lot of online stuff that when I had a business years ago for 10 years, that was the analog world. I didn't have to do anything in the way that I'm doing it now. So it's like learning a completely new language, which keeps my brain fresh at this age.
What made you decide to actually go into the therapy field?
I think it's always been knocking on the back of my head. I really think that when you look back on hardships, let's say, you look back on some of the really difficult things that have happened in your life. And I know you've had those things, and so is everyone else who's listening to us right now. I asked myself, why? What is the purpose that I went through the things that I did that caused me such incredible anxiety, that it was life-altering, truly life-altering? Why did that happen? And for me, it sounds trite, but for a reason. It was it's a project. It's a lifelong project that I've worked on to bring myself back to a place where I can do anything and everything that somebody who's not anxious can do. And so all of that work, all of the time, energy, struggle, money, everything that I spent to get myself in a much better place is something that I can give back to other people, that I can teach other people to do, so that people who are hiding and suffering right now and thinking there's no way out for me, and I'm not telling anybody about this weird shit that I do. Yeah, that was it. I thought about it then, even back in 2005, was I have a gift, if you want to look at it that way. I have a gift. It's been hard fought and hard won, but it's a gift that I can share with other people.
So let me ask you this. Are you going to put your feet on your desk and have a Snickers bar and a Coke when you get future patients coming into your room?
Well,
Or will it be a health bar?
you know it. It'll be an energy bar and a seltzer. Um, sometimes I see individuals one-on-one, face-to-face. Sometimes I work in teletherapy. Sometimes I'm outdoors and I do a lot of outdoor work and with movement with people, because movement, my favorite sentence of all time, thank you, Joseph Pilates, movement heals. And so when we are moving and aerating and expressing what's going on for us, it's easier to help dissipate it than sitting in a space. But yeah, so if my feet are up, it'll be an energy bar and a seltzer.
So do you think that, having had this really great counselor helping you, you know what it's like to have a good counselor, so you can almost not copy him or emulate him, but he can be an inspiration or inspire you to do things differently. And I mean, like you said, you've got a great sense of humor and you connect with people in a different way. But is he a little bit of a guide to just be more relaxed and be more you as opposed to a professional?
Yes. So when I think of professional therapist, and I thought of this before I got into therapy, it's the stereotype, right? You're laying on the couch, they're sitting behind you in a chair, they got the notebook, they ask you all the questions, right? And I didn't have that experience. And pretty much nobody that I've worked with since that first therapist, really, I guess I'm just not drawn to that. I tend to the people that are more open and meeting people where they are. So when I'm working with a 21-year-old who's just trying to figure out where to land, that's different than maybe a 45-year-old who's got way too many things on the plate, and how do we bring that down? It's meeting people where they are. But yeah, I would say this is not the stuffy notebook writer of your stereotypical imagination, for sure. And I do some equine therapy, so I'm outdoors working with horses. Also, I started with wildlife imagery back when I started my therapy practice. I actually trademarked wildlife imagery as a therapy modality, because one of the ways that I helped myself, and you can liken this to imaginary friends, if you will, was to search for the power and the grace of wild animals that could help me find those things in myself. So wherever I go, there are 6 animals with me all the time. And if I get stressed or I'm stuck in a situation, I'll just take a minute and ask you all to just help me go forward. And it's a creation of, what do I need right now? Well, that animal seems to really show that thing, so I'm going to focus on that. So I don't tell people what animals they should look into, but rather help them discover the power and the grace that they need. And that's been very effective. That one level that I work in has been effective, because not everyone who's super anxious wants to talk to a human. Some people are just really uncomfortable and not trusting other people for good reason. And so having that wild guide to take with you everywhere you go to help ground, it was really effective for me. So I developed it into something I can help other people with.
So, I mean, you've done a lot of work on yourself. Do you still struggle a lot with anxiety, or have you found ways that it's not as much?
It's not as much, but there are triggers, and it doesn't go away. You learn to manage it. I almost say to myself and sometimes to others that anxiety on the level that I had is like an addiction. And I don't mean to say that it's like drugs or alcohol, that kind of addiction that completely can destroy people's lives, but sort of the addiction to destroying a joyful place or a comfortable spot that I was in any time, any day, anywhere, by getting wrapped up in my head and creating a panic attack. It's kind of addictive, because I would trigger that stuff. It just would get triggered all the time till I couldn't do anything.
So it's almost like it's a comfort.
It is, oddly, and people wonder why sometimes we keep doing things to ourselves that are not productive. it's because we know how to do them. And there's a sort of odd comfort about knowing your space. And so being in a space where I don't have to be anxious was difficult at first because it was so unfamiliar. But so yeah, I work on it every day, and some days are better than others. But overall, I function completely comfortably in the rest of the crazy world with everybody else all the time.
So what advice or nuggets or knowledge can you share with us about the third act, about just being positive, just staying positive in a world where you're going to get a kick up the rear end, you're going to get the carpet yanked from underneath you, these things happen, and they do happen. You cannot avoid them.
No.
But it's so easy to just go into that black hole of negativity and stay in almost victim mode. But you've come out of that, and you've found a way to not be a victim and not play victim. Mm-mm. So what can you share? What guidance can you give? What nuggets?
Nuggets.
I like the golden nuggets.
I like nuggets too. The third act piece. If you're still alive, go forward in some way. Why? Just because I hit a number that we all fear. I mean, I don't know how many people say, oh, you're 60, oh, downslide coming, that we all fear, but I'm still here. I'm fortunate to be physically and mentally functional, and I can go forward. So why would I not want to constantly create something new and different and fabulous when I can do it? So I'm pushing myself into a totally new zone. And it doesn't mean that, like me, you have to start a career over again, like learning a new language. Although you could learn a new language, that's a good thing to do when you're 60. But to go forward in something that compels you, something that you're interested in. I never learned to knit. So that might be cool. I might be actually learning to knit. I could make something with that. I never learned to woodwork. Maybe that would be fun. There's so many things that people have skills at that just dying to share with you. If you just could open yourself to that. So yeah, we're still here. And I think one thing that motivates me, I lost one of my brothers to AIDS when he was only 41. And he was the most alive person I'd ever met at that point. He was constantly joking and laughing and getting involved with things and being active. He traveled Europe, he traveled South America. I mean, by the time he was 35, he'd been around to every country that an American could safely enter. And he was like a bright star. All of this stuff happened to him so early, and then poof, he was gone. And I think to myself, well, shoot, I'm still here. So do something with it. If I wanted to stay in teaching, I could do that, but I'm ready to do something to help teach people other skills that I have learned by my daily existence. So there's that. And then I think more than anything, it's easy to tell someone, don't hide. But it's not easy not to hide when you're feeling overwhelmed and like you're going to be judged. So what I would say instead is somehow, somewhere, to someone on some level, speak your truth. Tell somebody what it feels like. You might have friends that you just haven't really, you've covered it up for, but they might be safe to talk to. Great. Maybe there's someone in your family that you can trust to talk to. Maybe you think, there's no humans I would tell this. That's okay. You got a pet? Go outside. You got a tree? You got some wildlife out there? Go tell a living being, whether it can speak back in your language or not, doesn't make any difference. Tell a living being something about how you're feeling. Because when we just hold it bottled up in here, it just sits and it festers and it rots. And it's all based on rage and fear, this anxiety disorder thing that we all talk about. It's based on rage and fear that gets developed either when we're younger or when we are in a particularly traumatic situation. Speak it. Speak your truth to some living being on some level. Start opening up. That's the number one thing that any of us can do to start moving forward from being stuck in anxiety.
And that's really beautiful. Is like you said, talk to an animal, talk to a living being, a tree, a plant. And it is, if you're not used to speaking up and bottling it in, knowing that you can trust a tree, you can trust an animal, you can trust a plant, and that might be the first step to getting you to talking to a human,
Absolutely.
to a person. And I think that that's great for anybody, you know, even if you are just stressed or just finding life overwhelming, you know, to do it. So I mean, that's great advice for anyone. And I also liked how you were saying that if you're still alive at 60, just go for it. I mean, 60 is a number that for some reason it became this massive number where life was supposed to stop at 60. And that might have been when people lived till the average age was 55 or something. And so he got to 60, it's like, okay, time out, I'm done. But not anymore. I mean, 60 is supposed to be even now that it was the new 50s, but it's even becoming the new 40s now, you know. And like you said, Betty White, you know, she was working, I think, most of last year. And she was 95, or she turned 95. I can't remember. She was 94, turned 95, or 95 was going to turn 96. But still, you know, in her 90s, she was still working. She still had a great sense of humor. She still learned her lines. So that's 35 years still to go.
It is. It's a whole other lifetime yet to go.
It is. You don't want to just be sitting on a couch watching daytime TV and waiting to die. I mean, for 35 years, that's a long time. But even if you start something at 60 and something happens at 62 that you die or whatever, you still had those 2 years of doing something new, something different, living life.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's really very powerful, because so many people do. They hit this imaginary number, and it's like, okay, that's it now. I'm going to stop living, and that's what they do. They just stop living, and it's like, but you fit, you healthy, you do something. No, I'm tired. It's like, okay, but you don't need to do that anymore. And my father, I think he retired in his late 60s, and he died in his 80s. But he was the busiest after he retired. He did so many things. He was a consultant. He started a university or college in South Africa, and he did loads of things. And he said, I don't know how I had the time to work, because I'm more busy now than I was when I retired at 84 years old. He was still fixing the engine. He had one of these Volkswagen Beetles. He was still fixing the engine, and I'm like, you're too old for this. And he just looked at me and it's like, what's old? I can do it. I know what I'm doing. And I just think, okay, if you can do it, do it.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I love that you at 60 are embracing this new adventure of the internet and technology, and it's essentially a new way of doing business.
It is.
Than what you're used to from your previous business.
Completely.
And it's different again, because when teaching is very different to running your own business, and it's wonderful. So I love the idea of the third act. You know, but it could be somebody's fourth act or fifth act. It doesn't matter. You don't have to stop at 3.
Right. No, true. You can turn over what you're doing at any time. And I'm so glad to hear your dad was that kind of person that just jumped into all the things that when we're working full time, we get kind of caught up in that, oh, I've got to get out there and earn, make the donuts, as we say. We miss a lot of the things we'd really like to do. I mean, if someone said to you tomorrow, you don't have to work for money anymore, what do you want to do? Oh my gosh, I got a list this long of things I want to do when I don't have to worry about that. And a lot of people would look at that and go, I don't know. So it's something to start thinking about now. How now, even while people are working, how can you incorporate a little more of what feeds you, what you will, that Volkswagen Beetle that you want to fix up, whatever it is, what feeds you that you want to get attached to. And yeah, that's what fuels me. The list.
The passion for what you do. I mean, you've really enjoyed teaching. You've enjoyed it for what you said, 25 years,
21, yeah.
21 years. I mean, you've enjoyed it, but
Mhm.
now there's almost like a natural ending to it. So, okay,
Yeah.
so now what can I do to enjoy it? So even if you have a job, have something that gets you up in the morning instead of that, that Monday feeling that just makes you live the week for Friday. Then you enjoy the Friday night, you enjoy Saturday, and then you spend Sunday dreading Monday. Been there, done that. I know what I'm like. So, but it having your own business or doing something and creating money around that doesn't have to be a business, but it could, maybe you just really have a job that you enjoy, or people you enjoy working with, whatever, but find some passion, find something that brings a spark into your life. It doesn't have to be every day. You don't have to be happy and everything's great every day, because it doesn't work that way. But most of the time, it's got to have something in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what age you are. You can be any age. And I think that's so important, that you find something. And you've obviously found this retirement vehicle, as you call it, is now calling to you, and you're finding ways that you can do. I mean, you're writing a book, you learning how to do all these webinar and online memberships. I bet you in 2005, when you thought about this business, those did not feature into your head at all.
Oh, no, ma'am. I saw the section of my work that is private individual therapeutic sessions. That's all I pictured at the time. Now that has a completely different face. So that's what I mean by just delve into something on a level and see where it takes you. Because now that the time that we are in, and the time that I'm getting ready to retire from teaching pretty soon, is a time when technology and online everything helps people to reach a wider audience. I can help so many more people as an online educator than I can just in this little space of individual work, which I'm still doing a small level. But yeah, oh gosh, I couldn't even begin to have imagined what this would look like. And I'm still wondering most days, and just taking one step in front of the other every day, just doing something, connecting with someone who can help with the things that I'm not good at, and staying focused on what it is that I can best bring to the world.
And most solopreneurs are still wondering. So it's you are in good company. You're not alone in that.
Exactly.
So I've really enjoyed our conversation today, and I appreciate you spending the time. And I know that you have shared some really great advice and nuggets. But is there a last thought that you would just like to share before we knock off or go?
As you ask me that question, I'm taking a deep rolling breath. So the word that I will end with is breathe. Whenever you're stuck, whenever you're sure you can't, whenever it feels like it's going to run you over, take a deep breath and let it roll out of you. People underestimate, because of its simplicity, the power of breath to calm anxiety. When we saturate our every cell with enough oxygen to help move the toxicity that gets stuck in us out of our bodies, it can change everything. So without going into a big how-to, just a reminder, when you're stressed, you're not breathing. I can, from across a room, I can see someone that's holding their breath. And I don't mean like, like you threatened to when you're a little kid, when your mom didn't give you what you wanted. Not like that. But just that real shallow, I'm anxious, I can only breathe this little much. When you can think of that word, breathe, just take it in, blow it out. Immediately will help you let go of some of that tension. As a first start thing to remember, just breathe.
And that is wonderful. And you can do that anywhere, anytime, because it's with you. And that is a wonderful tip to leave off on and to share. Again, it's great for anybody to just, when anything's getting overwhelming, anything's just starting to feel yourself panicking about something, stressing, getting that anxious feelings, just take that moment, breathe in, breathe out, and do it a few times. And just let's just stop where you are. And you can do it. You can do it while you're driving. Just keep your eyes open. You can do it when you're standing in a queue. You can do it when you're just sitting at your desk. Doesn't matter. You can do it anytime.
Yes.
And
yes.
On that note, thank you so much, Bonnie. I've really had a good chat and loved picking out those little bits out of you. I know there's lots more.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Natalie. I really enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thank you for taking the time today to watch this video. I hope that you've got some inspiration, some motivation, nuggets of wisdom, nuggets of knowledge, or just any of those gold nuggets that have been shared with us today. Feel free to share this video with anyone who you think will enjoy it. Like the video, and most of all, please do subscribe to the channel. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care. Bye.